They were prepared for a long fight, arguments, explanations, emotional breakdowns, dramatic scenes. They were ready for a war of words, not the quiet execution you delivered. They thought you'd panic, plead, or demand answers. Instead, you shut the door without a sound and let silence finish the conversation. They never understood the power of saying nothing. They thought silence meant weakness, but silence was the announcement that the battle had already been won. You weren't avoiding the fight. You simply realized they weren't worth even swinging a sword. They were waiting for reaction, drama, a response they could twist and blame back on you. But how do you twist nothing? How do you manipulate someone who refuses to play? Your silence was the final judgment. No appeal, no second hearing, no retrial. Case closed permanently. They stood there with accusations ready, excuses practiced, tears rehearsed. You were supposed to crumble, defend, justify, explain. But the silence hit them harder than screams ever could. It told them everything. You were done. Silence is terrifying to those who live off control. When they cannot predict you, they cannot own you. And when they cannot own you, they have already lost. They didn't realize that silence is the language of people who have outgrown the situation. A loud exit is for those who still care. You left quietly because there was nothing left to fight for, not love, not loyalty, not respect. Their biggest shock was discovering that the person they once controlled emotionally now had the discipline to detach completely. That's the moment they realized the tables had turned. They expected messages at 2 a.m., long emotional paragraphs, calls begging for understanding. Instead, they got a phone that never rang again and a chat window permanently stuck at last seen. Your silence wasn't an empty space, it was a message. The message said, "I am not fighting for a connection you already destroyed." They kept refreshing their notifications, waiting for a meltdown. Instead, they saw you move on with your life, unbothered, unaffected, unshaken. That scared them more than anger ever could. They expected you to prove your worth. But people who know their worth don't audition. They leave. They tried to provoke you, poke your wounds, reopen your scars, feed on your emotional reaction, because emotional people are easier to control. But you didn't bleed for them anymore. You healed in silence. Silence became your final weapon. Because words only matter to someone who's listening, and you were done listening. They wanted chaos, but you chose peace. They wanted you emotional, but you became logical. They wanted you desperate, but you became distant. When someone who used to react stops reacting, that's when the truth hits. They never cared about understanding you, they only cared about winning. Your silence forced them to confront themselves, something they never thought would happen. Because as long as you were arguing, they could blame you. When you stopped, they had to blame themselves. And here is the painful truth they now wake up to. Your silence proved you were never the problem. They were. Now they sit with the echoes of their own actions. Because silence forces accountability. Silence is a mirror and they don't like what they see. They thought the end would be loud, dramatic, emotional. Instead, it was silent, clean, surgical. No explanations, no closure, no warning. Just the realization that the person they took for granted was never coming back. In the end, they finally learned. You didn't stay quiet because you were weak. You stayed quiet because they were no longer worth speaking to. And that realization hurt more than any words ever could. They replay every moment now, trying to understand the exact second when you detached. They look for the clue they missed, the shift in tone, the calm in your eyes, the way you began responding less and observing more. While they were busy trying to win the argument, you were already mentally packing your bags. They swear they would have changed if they had known silence was coming. But that's the truth they can't swallow. You shouldn't have needed to leave for them to act right. The moment you realized they required fear to behave, you knew the relationship was already dead. They spent so long trying to get a reaction that they never considered what would happen if one day you stopped giving one. They forgot that the quietest endings are often the most permanent. One day the messages stopped, the phone stopped ringing, and your heart stopped caring, all without announcement. They underestimated you because you used to show emotions. They didn't know that the quiet version of you was the most dangerous version. People often fear the storm, but they should fear the calm before it, because that's when a decision has already been made. Now they sit there practicing apologies in their heads, apologies they'll never send, because your silence makes them feel unwelcomed before they even type the first word. They can't face you because your lack of reaction makes them face themselves. They wanted leverage, but silence removes leverage. Without your voice, without your presence, without your reactions, they have nothing left to work with. You took away the battlefield and left them swinging in the air. Their ego is fighting with their conscience every day. The ego screams, "Don't reach out," while the conscience whispers, "You messed up." And both voices create a war they never wanted to fight but can't escape. They scroll through old conversations trying to figure out how someone who cared so deeply could go so quiet. Yet the truth is simple: silence was not the absence of love, it was the absence of tolerance. You could love them and still leave, and that is what they never expected. They thought silence would bring you back eventually, but it only pushed them further into the realization that you weren't coming back at all. The silence never cracked. The wall never shifted. You never returned. And that terrifies them. They show confidence on the outside, pretending they don't care, but inside they are haunted by the fact that someone they thought was emotionally fragile turned out to be emotionally unstoppable. You became a mystery they cannot solve. They check your life from afar, hoping one day you'll break, hoping the silence will end. But every day that passes without a word is a reminder that you've mastered what they never could: self-control. Your silence was your graduation. It showed you no longer needed their validation, affection, or drama. You moved from emotional responses to emotional discipline, and that was the evolution they never prepared for. They used to know how to push your buttons, but now there are no buttons to push. You became untouchable not because you became cold, but because you became wise. You learned the art of disconnecting with grace. They thought silence was empty, but silence was full of meaning. It said, "I survived, I learned, I grew, and I no longer need you to understand my worth." That's a sentence no words could match. Now they realize they didn't lose the argument, they lost the person. And losing the person is a loss louder than any fight they ever could have won. Silence became the crown you placed on your own head. Sometimes the most painful goodbye is the one wrapped in no emotion, no breakdown, no closure. And that's exactly what they received: a goodbye that didn't need delivery, because your absence said everything. Your silence wasn't you hiding, it was you healing. It was you choosing peace over chaos, self-respect over explanation, growth over repeating the same cycle. And that decision is the moment everything changed. In the end, they expected shouting, arguments, and passion, because that's how most stories end. But not this one. You ended it with the calmest weapon of all: silence. And now the silence echoes in their life louder than any words could have. Because they finally learned a devastating truth. You don't have to slam the door for someone to realize you're gone. Sometimes all it takes is never opening it again. They thought life was a simple cycle: leave, break, betray, return, apologize, and everything resets. But you weren't built to repeat history. You learned. You evolved. And by the time they realized what they lost, you were already rewriting the narrative in ink darker than their intentions. They came back when the storm they created finally cornered them. Suddenly, the villain they painted on the wall looked like the hero they needed. But you weren't interested in being needed anymore. You remembered what it felt like to be disposable, and you decided never to feel that again. They wanted reconciliation because they assumed you were still the same soft-hearted fool who would melt at the sound of their voice. But time and wounds forge steel, and now your silence carried more weight than their apologies ever could. They expected a warm return, not a frigid stare. They expected a conversation, not the solid brick wall of "I've moved on." They wanted you back, but they didn't understand that the version they abandoned didn't exist anymore. You didn't return to the battlefield for peace. You came back with armor, scars, and a memory sharpened into a blade. Not to negotiate, not to rebuild, but to make sure they never forgot the lesson you learned the hard way. They couldn't wrap their minds around why your eyes didn't soften, why your voice didn't tremble, why your heart didn't open. They assumed revenge was screaming, fighting, exposing, destroying. They never expected revenge to be simply outgrowing them. You didn't need explosions, dramatic confrontations, or venom-spitting speeches. All you needed was success, healing, growth, silence. Those were the daggers that cut deeper than any insult you could have thrown. They mistook your absence for weakness, never realizing you were building something far greater while they were busy trying to replace you. And when the truth hit, it hit like a freight train. They could never reach you again. They returned expecting the same door to be open. Instead, they found a fortress. A version of you that didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't break. A version of you they accidentally created when they miscalculated their cruelty. Once upon a time, you chased clarity, ran after explanations, begged for the truth. Now, you didn't care. Closure wasn't necessary anymore because the wounds taught you everything their words never could. They thought coming back was the triumph. They thought you'd be honored, relieved, grateful. But the real victory was standing there, looking at them, and realizing your peace no longer depended on their presence. Revenge wasn't about hurting them. Revenge was watching them deal with the realization that their absence damaged them far more than it damaged you. That's the kind of pain no retaliation can match. They wanted validation, forgiveness, emotional payout. Instead, they got a calmness they never expected. Because once you outgrow someone, the connection dissolves and nothing they do can earn their way back in. They expected regret sitting on your shoulders. Instead, you showed them a posture stronger, steadier, untouchable. Strength was the new language you spoke, and they were illiterate in it. You remembered the nights you barely breathed. They remembered none of it. They expected a reunion, but you remembered the pain, the betrayal, the broken promises. And that memory kept you grounded while they tried to drag you into déjà vu. You weren't the same. And that terrified them more than anything, because they realized the monster they crafted wasn't a villain, it was someone they could no longer manipulate, guilt trip, or command. At first they believed your distance was an act, that you were just wounded and waiting to be lured back. But eventually they realized that the cliff wasn't emotional, it was final. They could scream from the other side forever and still never get a response. They didn't fear losing you when they walked away. They feared losing the version of you that cared, and that version died the day you finally chose self-respect over their chaos. Revenge wasn't plotting their failure, it was building a life where their absence was an upgrade, and once you reached that level, even their return felt like a downgrade. They ran back hoping to press resume, but you had already pressed delete. And there's nothing more terrifying to someone who once had power than realizing their control expired. You didn't slam doors, you outgrew hallways. You didn't destroy them, you simply stopped giving them access. And that was the kind of revenge they were never prepared to face. They stopped laughing when they realized the joke ended up on them. They gambled with someone who wasn't afraid to lose. They thought your heart was the weakness, but it became the weapon. They hated that you didn't try to fix things, that you didn't fight, that you didn't come back. Because your lack of reaction proved a truth they weren't ready to accept. They mattered more to themselves than they ever mattered to you. And when the dust settled, when their apologies echoed unanswered, they finally realized why your revenge worked so well. It didn't destroy them, it made them live with the fact that losing you was their own doing. You won not by breaking them, but by becoming the version of yourself that didn't need them anymore. And nothing burns deeper than standing in front of someone who once thought you'd collapse without them, and proving you never needed them at all. They started realizing the gravity of their mistake when you didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't ask why. The silence they always weaponized was finally used against them, and this time, they were the ones drowning in unanswered questions. The irony was delicious. The person who once begged now walked away without saying a word. They never understood that love changes, hardens, evolves. They never imagined that the same heart that once cared enough to bleed could also cauterize the wound and keep walking. They built a monster and expected it to stay obedient, but monsters with memories are the hardest ones to leash. Once upon a time, you would have listened to their excuses, their reasons, their carefully packaged apologies. But experience becomes armor, and you learn something priceless. Closure isn't something given, it's something taken. And once you took yours, they had nothing left to offer. They underestimated how much strength a broken spirit could develop. They underestimated how much wisdom betrayal could teach. They underestimated how much transformation pain could force. And by the time they recognized the new version of you, the evolution was complete. What scared them wasn't your coldness, it was your stability, your calm, your peace. Because they were so used to chaos that they imagined you needed them to stay balanced. Seeing you balanced without them shattered their pride far more than any revenge ever could. You walked past them with a smile that wasn't forced, with eyes that showed no hesitation, with shoulders that carried no emotional debt. That image haunted them, because it proved one thing: they overestimated their importance in your story. They returned expecting vulnerability. Instead, they found someone who had outgrown the chapter entirely. You weren't revisiting old wounds, you were too busy writing new victories. And that reality cut deeper than all the tears you could have shed. They thought your silence was cruelty, but silence was mercy. Because speaking would have revealed just how little you thought of the situation anymore. Silence was the final nail in the coffin, a gesture that said, "You're not worth the sentence." Every step you took forward without them reminded them that their loss wasn't temporary. They tried to convince themselves you were just in a phase, that sooner or later you would snap back. But every passing day proved the opposite. You were gone for good. The greatest punishment was watching you become everything they tried to convince you you weren't. Strong, valuable, desired, respected. Their betrayal became the fire, and you turned the ashes into bricks for the foundation of a better future. They came back expecting to negotiate, but revenge was never about bargaining. It was the quiet decision that their access ended, their role expired, their chapter closed. They expected you to leave a door cracked open, but you built a new house in a new city and never gave them the address. They were terrified not because you changed, but because you didn't need them to change. Growth happened without their guidance, their apology, or their permission. And nothing bruises an ego like being replaced by self-worth. You knew they wanted redemption only because they feared consequences. They didn't want to make things right, they just wanted to escape accountability. And once you learned to distinguish genuine remorse from fear of losing control, their words lost all value. They thought rejection would break you, but surviving it only made you lethal. Not in anger, not in rage, but in the simple fact that you no longer played their game. And when you stopped playing, they lost all their power. The truth that kept them awake at night was this: they didn't lose you because they made a mistake. They lost you because they thought they could make one and still get you back. And realizing that you weren't waiting for them anymore, that was the real revenge. They never realized cruelty was a sculptor. Every insult, every betrayal, every manipulative silence was a chisel against your old identity. Piece by piece, the soft version of you cracked away, and something colder, sharper, more unshakable took its place. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was carve your evolution. They believed their disrespect would make you beg, fold, soften, or surrender. Instead, it hardened you. It taught you that the world does not reward the gentle, at least not while they are gentle in the hands of the ungrateful. You learn that kindness without protection becomes self-harm. They will meet a version of you that does not shrink, a version that demands boundaries instead of hoping for decency. Pain matured you into someone who knows your value without needing them to confirm it. That transformation was their unintended creation. They thought emotional damage would weaken you, but wounds forced you to grow muscle. Scars became armor. Where your heart once bled too freely, now it bleeds only for what has earned your tenderness. Their cruelty brought out the warrior they were never prepared to face. Once, you explained yourself. You justified yourself. You begged to be understood. But that season is over. Now you speak less, and your silence has more power than your old, desperate words ever did. They crafted that silence by ignoring your voice for too long. They thought you'd spend your life stuck in the memory of what they did. But instead, you turned memory into motivation. Their betrayal was a foundation, not a grave. They built the fire, but you decided whether to burn in it or rise out of it. They will meet a version of you that doesn't apologize for existing. Their cruelty erased the insecurity that made you feel small around them. Now you stand without shrinking. That confidence is their accidental gift. Once, you would have accepted the bare minimum, a breadcrumb of affection, a half-invested apology. Now you demand full presence or you walk away without hesitation. They taught you that. By giving you less, they taught you what you deserve. They will meet the version of you that is emotionally expensive. Not because you are difficult, but because now access to you requires honesty, respect, and consistency, currencies they never invested. Their manipulation killed the part of you that kept explaining your heart. Now, instead of proving your worth, you simply show it. And if someone can't recognize it, you leave them behind. No warnings, no second speeches. They trained you without realizing it. Every time they lied, you learned observation. Every time they dismissed your feelings, you learned emotional survival. Every time they walked away, you learned how to stand alone. Once, you cried over people who didn't even care about their own actions. Now you no longer waste emotion on anyone unwilling to meet you at the level you offer. Your tears have become investments, not reactions. They tried to turn you into someone bitter and destructive, but instead you became someone calculated and discerning. Controlled power is far more dangerous than rage, and that is the version they created. They expected their absence to break you. Instead, it stabilized you. You found out that you function better without the drama, the minimizing, the cycle of hope and disappointment. Peace taught you what love was supposed to feel like. They taught you how not to be treated. Sometimes that is the greatest lesson, realizing what behavior you will never again tolerate. That newfound self-respect is a weapon they handed you unknowingly. They will encounter the version of you that no longer explains why you left, because the explanation is self-evident. Anyone who truly valued you would have never needed the conversation. Their coldness forced you to self-soothe. Their distance forced you to grow independent. Their neglect taught you how to prioritize yourself. Growth born from abandonment is brutal but powerful. They will meet the version of you that doesn't break in pressure, because pressure is where you were forged. People forget that diamonds and resilience are born in the same environment. Once, they thought you were naive. Now they realize you were compassionate, and compassion in the wrong hands looks like naivety. You didn't change your heart, you just changed who deserves access to it. They wanted you to return weaker, but life doesn't work that way. People rarely return the same after their innocence is violated. They return wiser, colder, more precise versions built by fire. Their cruelty didn't just change how you see them, it changed how you see yourself. You stopped underestimating your ability to survive. You stopped believing you needed them to function. Their cruelty broke an illusion, not you. They will meet the version of you that can walk away without shaking, The version that understands that losing someone who never valued you isn't loss, it's freedom disguised as heartbreak. Once, they could ruin your whole day with one careless sentence. Now you can hear 10 insults and remain unshaken. Emotional control became your quiet superpower, one shaped entirely by the chaos they brought. They will meet the version of you that doesn't rush to respond. Delay became strategy, silence became clarity. You learned that not everything needs a reaction, and sometimes the strongest move is to simply not play. They thought they could define you. Instead, they revealed you. Sometimes cruelty is an unintended mirror. It forces you to see the strength you never realized you had. Their damage allowed your evolution. They wanted you to stay predictable, emotional, hurt, dependent. But now your unpredictability is their punishment. They don't know what you feel. They don't know what you think. That guessing is their new anxiety. They expected you to be scared of losing them. But you realized the truth: you were only losing the version of you that was willing to tolerate what you never deserved. The real loss was theirs, never yours. They will meet the version of you that chooses peace, even when chaos is offered. The version that knows silence is not weakness, it is power, discipline, and emotional maturity. Growth looks like stillness, and they can't interpret it. They built a storm around you, hoping to drown you. Instead, you became the storm. Stronger, quieter, more focused. They created the very force they now fear. And when they eventually look at you, really look, they will understand the harsh truth. You are not the person they hurt. You are the person their cruelty helped build. That version wasn't born in comfort. It was crafted in fire. Their fire. They never imagined that the version of you who loved them unconditionally would one day no longer exist. That innocence, that softness, that willingness to sacrifice, they killed it themselves. And now they mourn a version of you they destroyed, not realizing that every time they crossed the line, you crossed another stage of evolution. They assumed their disrespect would be forgiven the way it always had been. They thought you would sweep everything under the emotional rug and pretend it didn't hurt. But the difference now is simple. You didn't get colder because you stopped caring. You got wiser because you finally learned to care about yourself first. They are only shocked because they never expected consequences. They believed access to you was permanent, unconditional, unshakable. They thought you would always come back, always excuse the pain, always keep your heart unlocked. Their shock is not about losing you, it's about realizing they never truly understood you at all. The new version of you is not cruel, just unavailable to those who once took advantage. You do not act out of revenge, you act from evolution. They taught you that some doors deserve to stay closed, not because you are bitter, but because you finally see your own value clearly. They are confused now because their usual tactics don't work on you. The guilt trips, the emotional bait, the passive aggression, none of it lands. You've outgrown the emotional prison they once convinced you was normal. Growth always looks like coldness to those who benefited from your warmth. Once, they had the power to pull you back in with a few sweet words. Now their words mean nothing because words without changed behavior are just manipulation with better vocabulary. You learned the difference the hard way, and you'll never unlearn it again. Their biggest mistake was thinking silence would weaken you. Instead, you used that silence to rebuild, to think, to heal, to transform. They expected you to wait for them to become better, but instead, you became better without them. They never realized that the version of you they used to mistreat was temporary. People don't stay soft forever. Some become stronger, some become smarter, and some become unreachable. They crafted the very distance that now keeps them locked outside of your life. They now fear you not because you became dangerous, but because you can now walk away without hesitation. They can no longer control your emotions, or your fears, or your decisions. Emotional independence is the one thing abusers never expect their targets to develop. It is ironic they wanted you to break, yet you became unbreakable. They tried to tear out your wings, but instead they turned you into something that doesn't need wings at all. You don't fly anymore, you rise. And rising is something they cannot stop or understand. They expected you to explode, scream, cry, demand apologies, and throw words like broken glass across the room. They wanted the drama. They wanted the emotional meltdown. They wanted proof that they still mattered enough to shake you, but you gave them something far more dangerous: indifference. They hate that you're not raging, not arguing, not trying to prove your side. They were prepared for a battle and found no opponent. Your silence turned the war into a funeral, and they're the only ones mourning something that you already buried long ago. They don't understand how someone who once cared so deeply could switch off the light and walk out of the room without hesitation. They don't understand that caring has a limit, and they pushed you right past it. Now they're standing on the ashes of something they started, wondering how you managed to walk away without getting burned. They hate that you're not angry, because anger would mean you still feel something. Anger is still involvement. Anger still means the heart is engaged. But you're beyond that stage. You're not fighting. You're finished. And finished is a power they never expected you to have. They were ready with manipulations, excuses, half-truths, and sweetened lies. They thought they could reel you back in with guilt or guilt-shaming, but you didn't argue or stay to negotiate. You nodded, understood, and left. That terrified them more than any confrontation ever could. They hate that you figured them out. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like someone closing a book that they had already finished reading. You noticed the patterns. You measured their actions. You connected the dots. And once the truth was complete, you chose peace over participation. They never expected you to choose the exit. They thought you would stay out of habit, familiarity, fear, attachment, or emotional loyalty. But you changed roles from someone who tried to save the relationship to someone who realized they were saving themselves instead. Now they're the ones trying to catch up with the reality they created. They hate that you didn't wait for apologies. Apologies would mean closure, and closure would give them a sense of control. But you didn't need closure, you gave it to yourself. When someone no longer needs answers, the person withholding them loses all power. They can't accept that you don't care enough to be angry. That's the blow they never saw coming. They thought they injured the heart, not realizing they only exposed its strength. People become done only after they've spent every last attempt trying to make something work. They hate that they don't get to witness your breakdown, that there is no emotional performance for them to enjoy, no weakness left to exploit, no openings to re-enter. You didn't collapse, you shut the door, and the chapter and the entire story. And what's scarier is that you did it without a single word. They're replaying every mistake in their head, trying to figure out where you finally checked out. Was it the lie? The disrespect? The silence? They don't know, because your final straw happened quietly. They didn't see the switch flip. They only saw the aftermath once the light went out. They hate that your silence is your revenge, not the dramatic kind, the permanent kind. Silence is the Joker's sharpest weapon, and you wielded it perfectly. Because silence forces a person to sit alone with themselves, and they don't like the reflection that stares back. They hate that you didn't need closure from them, because you learned the most important lesson. Closure doesn't come from someone who broke you. It comes from the strength to walk away without needing them to understand why. They hate that you stopped explaining yourself. People only explain when they think someone is capable of understanding. They realize too late that you no longer cared whether they understood or not. Explanation is investment, and you made your last deposit. They hate that your absence is louder than your presence ever was. When you were there, they took your voice for granted. Now that you're gone, your silence echoes in every corner of their life. The absence hurts more than any argument ever would. They hate that you didn't curse their name, poison their reputation, or go around telling people what happened. You just left, clean, calm, controlled. And now they must carry the weight alone because the villain they tried to paint you as never showed up. They hate that you healed. People comfortable with your pain feel threatened by your recovery. The moment you stopped bleeding, their sense of superiority evaporated. Healing took away their leverage. Peace rewrote your story without needing them in it. They hate that your life didn't fall apart. In fact, it got better. New peace, new confidence, new clarity. Betrayal didn't destroy you, it transformed you. And watching you evolve without them is the punishment life gave them on your behalf. They hate that they now understand how replaceable they were. Not because you told them, but because you moved on without hesitation. Replacement isn't finding someone new. Replacement is learning you never needed them in the first place. They hate that they are stuck in the moment you left, while you've already entered a new chapter. They are frozen in regret. You are flowing with purpose. They are rewatching the past. You are writing the next page, and that difference hurts. They hate that you're not trying to make them regret losing you because you don't care if they do. Your life stopped revolving around their reaction. And nothing scares a manipulator more than losing emotional influence over the person they once controlled. They hate that they lost access to you, to your heart, your presence, your loyalty, your magic. They didn't lose just a person, they lost the version of you that would have done anything for them. And that version is dead, buried, and not coming back. They hate that your goodbye wasn't a scene, it was a decision. A calm, quiet, irreversible choice. Nothing is scarier than someone who leaves with peace. Because peace means certainty, and certainty means you're not coming back. They hate that being done gives you more power than being angry ever could. Anger burns out. Being done doesn't. Anger fades. Being done lives forever. And now they must face the truth the hard way. The story is over and you're the one who turned the final page. And the cruel, poetic irony is this. They wanted a reaction to feel important. But by giving them nothing, you finally showed them their true value in your life. They hate that you didn't fight for the connection because it meant you realized something they never wanted you to see, that the relationship was already dying long before you left. And once a person finally sees what's true, pretending becomes impossible. You didn't abandon them. You just stopped lying to yourself. They hate that you no longer react to their presence. No tension, no emotional spike, no anger, no sadness, just neutrality. Indifference is terrifying because it means the heart has healed. And when the heart heals, the past loses its power. They never expected to become just another chapter, but here they are, collecting dust. They hate that they can't guilt trip you anymore. Guilt used to bend you. Shame used to silence you. Emotional pressure used to pull you back. But now those tricks bounce off you like bullets against steel. They lost their ability to move you, and that loss is something their ego can't swallow. They hate that you don't even want revenge. Revenge would still mean they live rent-free in your head. But you chose something much colder. You outgrew the battlefield entirely. Nothing crushes a person more than realizing they are no longer important enough to even hate. They hate the way you smile because they know they didn't put that smile there. Someone else did. Something else did. Your peace did. And that smile reminds them that they no longer have the emotional control they used to masterfully enjoy. They hate that you don't explain your silence. They want answers. They want closure. They want dialogue. But you learn the most dangerous truth of all: silence is closure. Silence is explanation. Silence is a sentence passed without a trial, and they never saw it coming. They hate that the version of you they knew no longer exists. You shed your skin, your patterns, your emotional reflexes. You upgraded into someone who doesn't run toward the fire, someone who walks away from the building before it collapses. Growth is your revenge, and it burns. They hate that they don't know what you're thinking anymore. You used to be easy to read, emotional, expressive, available. Now your emotions are a locked vault, and your thoughts are private property. They don't know what's happening in your world, and the unknown shakes their security. They hate that people still admire you, despite everything they did to tear you down, despite the lies, despite the disrespect. You ended up earning respect they didn't see coming. It proves that your character was stronger than their injustice, and that realization is a knife in their pride. They hate that losing you wasn't mutual. You didn't lose anything when you walked away, you gained yourself. But they lost a person who truly cared for them, and they are now forced to live with the reality that their choices cost them someone who never planned to replace them easily. They hate that you don't care who they talk to, what they post, who they date, or what they do. Indifference is worse than jealousy. Indifference means emotional death. And watching you move on without emotional turbulence feels like a verdict they can't overturn. They thought betrayal would shatter you. They thought the moment the knife hit you'd bleed chaos, scream for closure, demand answers. They thought your heart would make the kind of noise they could feed off. But instead you gave them nothing. You handled it like business, cold, clean, emotionless. You looked at betrayal not like heartbreak, but like an expense written off the books. You didn't cry. You recalculated. You didn't chase. You cut ties. And that's what shook them. Not your anger, not your sadness, your composure. They expected a storm and got silence. They wanted drama, and you gave them professionalism. You treated the betrayal like a termination notice, no emotion, no meeting, just finality. And that level of calm, that's terrifying to people who thought they had control over your emotions. You see, they mistook your kindness for naivety. They thought you were emotionally dependent, too soft to survive a knife in the back. They didn't realize that people like you don't break, they adapt. You don't explode, you evolve. Betrayal didn't end you, it recalibrated you. You learned to remove feelings from the equation and replace them with logic. Cold, efficient logic. They thought you'd beg for explanations, for closure, for the why, but you didn't care about the why. You already saw the who. You already knew that closure is just manipulation wearing perfume. So you skipped the crying phase, the overthinking phase, the what-if phase, and went straight to acceptance. They showed you what they were, and you believed them. End of story. They don't understand how you could just walk away, how you could delete the chat, unfollow the names, erase the energy, and never look back. But that's because they confuse attachment with weakness. You don't stay where trust has been broken, you leave like a surgeon cutting out an infection. Clean, precise, necessary. You didn't curse them. You didn't expose them. You didn't even try to make them feel guilty. You just withdrew your access, and that's what hurt the most. Because nothing scares a betrayer more than realizing they no longer have emotional leverage. You stopped reacting, and in doing so, you stripped them of power. Now they replay every interaction, wondering if you ever cared. They look for cracks, signs, mistakes, anything that explains how you detached so effortlessly. But the truth is, you didn't detach easily. You just learned the cost of giving your emotions to people who treat them like currency. So you stopped investing where the return was pain. They call you cold now. They whisper that you've changed. But what they don't realize is cold is just the name people give to boundaries they can't manipulate. You didn't become heartless. You became self-aware. You realized you could love deeply without tolerating disrespect. You learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconnection. You turned pain into precision. Every betrayal became a lesson. Every fake smile, a data point. You learned to read people without their words, to hear dishonesty in tone, to spot manipulation in kindness. And once you learned that, you stopped falling for illusions. You started moving with strategy. Quiet, intentional, lethal. They thought they could control your emotions, but you turned emotions into armor. You stopped wearing your heart on your sleeve and started carrying it like a secret. Nobody gets to read it now unless they've earned it. And that's what makes you dangerous. No one knows what you're feeling, and that mystery keeps them terrified. You didn't clap back. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't prove anything. You just executed the cleanest exit they've ever seen. No warning, no announcement, no tears, just gone. And that's the part that haunts them. Because people expect revenge. They don't know how to handle indifference. Now they tell people you're ruthless, detached, emotionless, but really you're just efficient. You've learned to treat betrayal like business. Not everything needs closure. Not every loss deserves a eulogy. You evaluate, you cut, you continue. You understand the value of peace, and you refuse to negotiate it again. They're not used to people like you. People who don't beg, don't explain, don't flinch. You make them question themselves, because if you could let go that easily, maybe they never mattered as much as they thought, and that realization destroys them more than any revenge ever could. You walked away with your dignity intact, your emotions unexposed, and your peace untouched. That's what true power looks like. It's not in revenge, not in rage, it's in detachment. It's in smiling through betrayal, saying nothing, and leaving them to deal with the silence they earned. They thought betrayal would break you. Instead, it taught you balance. It made you sharper, calmer, untouchable. You turned pain into discipline, heartbreak into focus, and loss into clarity. You became what they never expected, someone who no longer bleeds when cut. And now, they look at you with confusion and fear, realizing too late you were never fragile. You were just kind. They mistook mercy for weakness, and now they're left with the aftermath of their own arrogance. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You just smiled like someone signing off the final page of a deal gone wrong. Because that's what betrayal is, not a tragedy but a transaction. You paid the price, learned the lesson, and closed the account. Cold, clean, final. And now, every time they think of you, they don't remember your pain, they remember your composure. The stillness in your eyes when everything burned. The poise in your silence. The terrifying calm of someone who decided their peace was worth more than any explanation. You didn't lose them. You released them. And in that release, you became untouchable. Because handling betrayal like business isn't cruelty, it's evolution. They still can't process how you didn't crumble, how you didn't scream, argue, or make a scene, how you didn't fight for closure, didn't ask why, didn't demand an apology. You just accepted the betrayal like someone signing off a contract that had reached its natural end. No emotion, no drama, just clarity. That's what unsettled them, the way you made pain look like peace. They wanted guilt to become your prison, but you turned it into your liberation. You didn't let their betrayal define your worth, you let it reveal theirs. You saw the truth behind every smile, the cracks behind every promise, and you didn't flinch. You simply adjusted your boundaries and kept walking. It wasn't cruelty, it was maturity. And maturity terrifies those who live off manipulation. They still talk about you not out of love but out of confusion. How could someone they thought was so emotionally invested become so detached, so untouchable, so unbothered? They built their ego around the idea that you'd need them forever. When you didn't, it shattered the illusion they lived in. They try to provoke you from a distance now, hoping to awaken some old version of you. But you don't react. You've mastered the art of quiet indifference. And that indifference kills them softly. Because when the game stops working, the players start losing themselves. You turn betrayal into discipline. You didn't just survive it, you studied it. You learned patterns, motives, the psychology of deceit, and now you see through people like glass. That awareness makes you dangerous, not because you seek revenge, but because you'll never fall for the same trick twice. You've outgrown their level of play. They thought betrayal would make you bitter. It didn't. It made you precise. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't explain. You simply analyze and act. You don't need revenge, your silence does the work. You don't need confrontation, your peace makes them restless. You became the calm they can't compete with. They say time heals wounds, but you didn't wait for time. You healed yourself by detaching from everything that tried to drain you. You stopped trying to fix people who enjoyed being broken. You stopped romanticizing pain. You learned that some goodbyes are not losses, they're relief disguised as heartbreak. Now they call you emotionless, but they confuse peace with emptiness. You still feel deeply, but you choose wisely who gets to witness it. You're not numb, you're selective. Because not everyone deserves access to the soft parts of your soul. Not everyone has the maturity to handle your depth without drowning in it. You handle people differently now. You no longer react to tone, you respond to intention. You read actions, not apologies. You trust patterns, not promises. And that shift, that evolution makes you powerful in ways they'll never understand. You're no longer the player, you've become the observer, the one who sees everything, says little, and moves accordingly. They once thought betrayal would break your faith in love, but it didn't. It simply redefined it. You learned that love without respect is manipulation, and trust without honesty is a trap. So you stopped chasing connections and started cultivating peace. And that peace, it looks good on you. It looks untouchable. You didn't destroy them, you just stopped participating in the chaos. You became too expensive for their cheap games. You stopped explaining your worth to people who only understood value when it was gone. And now they sit in the silence they created, realizing too late that you were the calm they'll never find again. They're shocked, aren't they? Shocked that after all the mud they threw, you still walk through crowds untouched. Shocked that no matter how many stories they spun, no matter how loud they screamed, people still looked at you with admiration. They tried to stain your name, but all they did was polish your legend. They thought destroying your image would erase your influence. They forgot one simple truth: character outlives gossip. Reputation is what they paint. Legacy is what you build. And legacy doesn't crumble under noise, it thrives on it. They worked overtime trying to twist every word, every move, every memory. They thought if they threw enough dirt, people would stop seeing your light. But light doesn't ask for permission to shine, it breaks through on its own. And now, their bitterness looks pathetic next to your calm. It's funny, really. They tried to assassinate your character like it was a sport. And now they have to watch the world adore the very person they tried to destroy. Their failure isn't just visible, it's humiliating. They said you were fake, yet you remained real. They said you were selfish, yet you kept giving. They said you'd fall, and you did, only to rise higher than their reach. Now their words echo in empty rooms, while your name echoes in applause. You became proof that truth doesn't need defense. You didn't fight their lies with arguments, you fought them with consistency. You didn't react, you evolved. And that quiet evolution became your loudest victory. Now they look around, confused. Why do people still like you? They ask. Because people saw through the performance. Because authenticity can't be faked, and you never needed a mask. They're haunted by the realization that you won without revenge. That your silence became your PR team. That your peace became your power. And that while they were busy tearing pages, you were writing chapters. Every insult they threw became a seed, and you turned it into growth. Every rumor became a test, and you passed without saying a word. Now the same crowd that believed their lies claps when your name is mentioned. That's what eats them alive. The fact that the world saw your scars and still chose to call you beautiful. The fact that despite their efforts, you're still the one people root for. They hate how unbothered you've become. How you still laugh, still build, still move like their opinions don't exist. Because they don't. Not anymore. They thought tearing your image would isolate you, but it only revealed who truly stood with you. It separated the real from the fake, and in the end, you lost nothing of value. Now they watch you shine, but they can't join the celebration. They can't clap for you without choking on envy. They can't mention your name without tasting regret, because every success of yours reminds them of their failure. And isn't that poetic? They tried to destroy you, but instead, they destroyed their own credibility. They turned themselves into background noise in your story. The people they tried to poison with lies, now those same people defend you. Those same people see through the narrative. And that truth, it cuts deeper than any revenge ever could. You never needed to expose them. Their own envy did the job. Because eventually, people always notice who spreads chaos and who stays calm through it. You became untouchable not because they stopped talking, but because you stopped caring. You realize their hate is just misplaced admiration, a confession disguised as criticism. And now, they live in confusion, wondering how you survived, how you kept winning, how you still managed to inspire the same world they tried to turn against you. It's simple, you didn't survive their hate. You transcended it. They wanted to bury you, not realizing you were the seed. And when you grew into something magnificent, they blamed the soil, the rain, the world, anything but themselves, because admitting your strength would mean admitting their weakness. Now they talk softer when your name comes up. Now they avoid eye contact when people praise you. They thought you'd fade, instead you became the standard. They thought you'd vanish, instead you became unforgettable. So yes, they're shocked. Shocked that the world still loves you. Shocked that your name still carries power. Shocked that all their efforts only made you shine brighter. And deep down, they know. They didn't destroy you. They built the version of you that doesn't need their approval. They created their own downfall by trying to rewrite your story. You never needed to prove them wrong. You just had to keep being right in silence. Because truth doesn't defend itself, it endures. And endurance, my friend, is the loudest revenge of all. They wanted to define you. They wanted to own the narrative. They wanted to decide what people saw when they looked at you, a villain, a fraud, a disappointment. But the funny thing about lies is that they age badly. And truth, my friend, it ages like a legend. Now, everywhere they go, they see you. Your name on lips they thought would never speak it again. Your light in spaces they swore you'd never enter again. You've become a ghost in their world, not because you're gone, but because you haunt their conscience. They thought the world would believe them. They underestimated how powerful authenticity feels when it walks into a room. Because even if they spoke louder, you always spoke truer. And truth echoes longer than noise. They're angry that people still believe in you. But belief isn't something you can fake. It's something you earn, slowly, quietly, through pain and patience. And they never had that kind of strength. They mocked you when you were soft. They misread your silence as defeat. But you weren't broken, you were building. And now they see the masterpiece that came from the rubble they left behind. They didn't expect you to be this unshakable. They didn't expect that every rumor they spread would backfire. Because while they were busy talking about you, you were busy turning their noise into motivation. You became a lesson in survival, a walking contradiction to their expectations. And now, no matter how much they try to discredit you, they can't rewrite what you've achieved. Their biggest mistake wasn't underestimating you. It was assuming that other people couldn't see through them. But the world isn't blind, it just takes time to notice. And once they did, the spell broke. Now, when your name comes up, they go quiet, because everyone remembers what they said about you, and everyone also remembers how wrong they were. That silence, that's accountability in disguise. They scroll through your success, pretending not to care. But that sting they feel each time your face appears. That's karma with perfect aim, the kind that doesn't shout, it just arrives. They wanted you to crumble, but you stood still calm, smiling, almost amused. Because once you stop reacting, you start controlling the energy, and they hate that you learned that lesson too well. Now, your peace disturbs them. Your laughter irritates them. Your growth is their punishment. Because they thought taking your image would take your soul, and yet, here you are, more alive than ever. They wanted people to hate you. Instead, they exposed themselves. Because when people see who talks the loudest and who moves with grace, they know where the truth lives. And that's your quiet victory. Not revenge, not payback, just proof. Proof that no one can destroy what's built on authenticity. That no smear campaign can stain a genuine soul. They see you winning and call it luck. They see you glowing and call it arrogance. But deep down they know it's neither, it's justice. The universe returning balance in silence. You don't gloat. You don't brag. You don't even correct them. Because silence, when used right, becomes the most powerful weapon. And yours cuts deep not with noise but with results. Now they wish they had been kinder. They wish they hadn't joined the gossip. They wish they'd believed in you instead of envying you. But wishes don't rewrite stories, they only highlight regret. You've become untouchable, not because you fought back, but because you walked away and stayed silent long enough for truth to do the fighting. And the truth won, as it always does, in the end. They used to call you dramatic. Now they call you disciplined. They used to call you emotional. Now they call you strong. You didn't change for them. You changed because of them. Their shock is your serenity. Their confusion is your closure. And every time they see your calm, they realize you didn't lose anything when you left them behind. They did. Because despite all their efforts to tear you down, you still became the one thing they can never be respected. And that respect burns them quietly, every day, while you keep rising, unbothered, untouched, unstoppable. So let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how you're still shining after the storm. Because in the end, their hate was your wind and you learned how to fly through it. They tore your image, but not your essence. They tried to end your story, but you became the plot twist. And now, they're forced to live with the irony that the villain they tried to create became everyone's favorite truth. Oh, so now they're sorry. Now they want to talk about what they didn't mean, what they didn't know, and what they didn't expect. But where were those words when they were busy tearing you apart? Where was that remorse when they laughed at your pain like it was a show? You see, it's funny how apologies only show up after the damage becomes permanent. After the light in your eyes turns into something colder, sharper, untouchable. They didn't want to understand you when you were kind. They only want to fix you now that you've become the storm they created. They called you dramatic for feeling, weak for caring, foolish for staying. They told stories about you, twisted truths, poisoned your name. And when you finally snapped, when you finally stopped caring, suddenly you became the villain in the story they wrote. But tell me, who's the real villain here? The one who was made from betrayal, or the ones who laughed while they broke you? Because you didn't wake up cruel. You were pushed there. You didn't crave destruction, you simply learned it from them. Now they see you quiet, calm, distant, and it terrifies them. Because that silence means they can't reach you anymore. You don't react, you don't explain, you don't chase. You just exist in peace, and that peace is the loudest revenge you'll ever need. They never thought their actions would build a version of you that doesn't flinch, that doesn't believe in love the same way, that doesn't trust smiles, doesn't fall for promises, doesn't beg for closure. They turned your empathy into calculation, your softness into strategy. And now they whisper, "You've changed." No, you adapted. You grew armor where they left scars. You learned to breathe fire where they tried to suffocate your voice. They used to mock your kindness, now they fear your silence. They used to take advantage of your love, now they miss it like oxygen. Because what they broke wasn't just your heart, it was the bridge back to you. And now, no apology can rebuild what their ego burned. You see, they wanted control, but they ended up creating chaos. They wanted power, but they handed it to you. Because once someone loses your empathy, they lose the last part of you that cared to stay. And they don't realize it until the door closes for good. Now they lurk in the shadows of your peace. They replay every memory, every word, every choice, wondering where it all went wrong. It went wrong when they mistook your patience for weakness. It went wrong when they thought your loyalty was infinite. They said you'd come crawling back, but you never did. They said you'd regret leaving, but you found freedom. And now, their biggest punishment is realizing that the villain they created no longer needs them at all. That's not revenge, that's consequence. They're not sorry because they understand. They're sorry because they lost control. Because the person who used to beg for their time now doesn't even flinch at their name. They're sorry because they can't manipulate what doesn't feel anymore. They wanted to see you broken instead. They witnessed your evolution. They wanted to be the hero of your story. Instead, they became the lesson. And now every time they hear about you, they have to live with the truth. You didn't just survive, you ascended. You became the version of yourself they swore would never exist. The cold one, the focused one, the one who doesn't forgive so easily. And in that transformation, you became untouchable. Their words don't cut, their guilt doesn't matter, they lost that privilege long ago. You walk differently now, steady, quiet, dangerous. You speak less, but when you do, it's truth, and truth hurts them more than any scream ever could. You're not cruel, you're precise. You don't hate them, you just don't care. And that's something their egos can't comprehend. Because in their heads, they were the main characters. But in your story, they were just a lesson, a painful one, yes, but one that taught you exactly how to stand alone, unshaken, unbothered. They wrote your downfall, but you rewrote your ending. Now they watch you from afar, proud in public, regretful in private. They still talk, still pretend, still minimize, but their eyes tell the truth. They miss the version of you that would have forgiven them. Too bad that version doesn't exist anymore. Oh, so now they're sorry? Now they want to talk about peace? About healing? About how things used to be? No. Let them keep their apologies. Let them taste their regret. Because this calm, composed, dangerous version of you is what happens when angels finally stop trying to save people who love the fire more than the warmth. You didn't become heartless. You just stopped bleeding for people who never bled for you. So when they call you a villain, smile. Because villains don't beg. Villains don't cry. Villains don't break. They learn. They rise. They build. And that's exactly what you did. They're sorry now, but it's too late. You're already gone. And your absence? That's the most haunting apology they'll ever get. Funny, isn't it? The same mouths that once mocked you now whisper your name like a warning. The same eyes that rolled when you cared now follow you with regret. Because they thought they'd win by breaking you. But they didn't know you'd learn how to build yourself from the wreckage. You became everything they swore you couldn't be, self-contained, silent, sovereign. You don't need them to validate your worth anymore. And that's what burns them the most. Not your distance. Not your indifference, but your freedom. They expected a meltdown. You gave them evolution. They expected vengeance. You gave them indifference. You see, nothing terrifies small minds more than realizing their cruelty made you untouchable. You grew colder, yes, but you also grew wiser. Now, when they see you, They see the cost of their own actions. They see what it looks like when an angel stops praying and starts walking away. They see what happens when someone finally understands that love without respect is self-destruction, and it kills them quietly. Their apologies never reach you, they die in their throats, swallowed by ego. Because even if they said the words, you wouldn't care. Not anymore. Forgiveness is a luxury you no longer hand out for free. They used to think silence meant weakness. Now they understand silence is finality. It's the sound of doors that don't reopen. It's the echo of lessons they refused to learn when they had the chance. You walk through life lighter now. No guilt, no chase, no need to explain. You realized peace is better than revenge because peace lasts longer. Peace doesn't depend on them. Peace makes you immune to their chaos. And that immunity drives them insane. They lurk in the aftermath, pretending they don't miss you, pretending you didn't matter, but oh, you did. You became the mirror that showed them who they really are. And they hated it. They tell people you changed. You didn't change, you woke up. You stopped begging people to see your value. You stopped confusing attachment for loyalty. They thought you'd stay stuck, circling their orbit like a lost satellite. But you built your own galaxy, and now they're the ones lost in the dark. Their pride won't let them admit it, but every time your name surfaces, their chest tightens a little. They scroll through your life in silence, trying to read between the lines, wondering if you still think of them, wondering if there's still a chance. There isn't, because the door didn't just close, it vanished. You don't even live in the same dimension anymore. They're still chasing closure. You're chasing purpose. They're still talking about the past. You're designing the future. They call you heartless because they can't reach your heart anymore. They call you cold because you stopped burning for them. But what they'll never admit is that you didn't become heartless. You just gave your heart a higher standard. Now, when people mention them, you don't even flinch. You just smile, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because you finally understand that they were never your ending. They were just the plot twist that woke up the main character. Let them be sorry. Let them replay it all in their heads, over and over. They'll never get to rewrite what happened. They'll never get another version of you. The chapter's closed, and the villain walked away with the crown. So yes, they're sorry now. Sorry that they mistook love for weakness. Sorry that they built their ego on your patience. Sorry that they created something they can't destroy anymore. But the truth? You don't need their sorrow. You don't need their words. Because the person they turned into a villain finally found peace. And peace, real, untouchable peace, is the most terrifying revenge of all. They're shocked to see you still standing on business unshaken, unbent, unbothered, because they thought their betrayal would cripple you, that their absence would break your rhythm. They underestimated your silence. They mistook calm for surrender. But the truth is, you never stopped standing, you just stopped explaining. They thought you'd fall apart after they left. They waited for the collapse, the desperation, the regret. But instead, you elevated. Quietly, ruthlessly, intentionally. Because when peace becomes your focus, pain becomes irrelevant. You see, they built their strength on attention. They needed eyes, validation, applause. But you built yours in the dark, no witnesses, no noise, no weakness. And that's why you're still standing while they're still talking. They said you'd fade without them. But you didn't fade, you evolved. They threw dirt on your name, thinking it would bury you. They didn't know you were a seed. Now, every move you make is proof that the storm missed its mark. You turned pain into purpose, betrayal into blueprint, and silence into power. You didn't just survive what they did, you made it your origin story. And that's what kills them the most. You turned their cruelty into your credibility. They used to laugh when you said you'd rise again. Now they whisper, afraid to admit you already have. Because standing on business doesn't mean shouting your wins. It means being so solid they can't shake your foundation even when they try. You didn't come back louder. You came back smarter. No outbursts, no revenge, just discipline, consistency, and results. You let time do the talking, and time has a brutal way of exposing who was real. They can't believe you're still unbothered, because they measured your strength by how much chaos they could cause. But you moved past that frequency. You stopped dancing to their drama. Now, they look up and realize you're not even in the same league anymore. They thought you'd fall off once they pulled away, but your drive was never fueled by their approval. Your hunger didn't come from proving them wrong, it came from proving yourself right. And now they see it, that terrifying, calm confidence of someone who doesn't need validation. They try to convince themselves you're just acting strong, but deep down they know it's not an act, because real power doesn't need to perform, it's felt. And they feel it every time your name comes up in a room that used to doubt you. You're not chasing revenge anymore. You're chasing legacy. You stopped explaining your worth to those who couldn't afford to recognize it. Because when you're really about your business, you don't clap back, you collect results. They see your peace and mistake it for pride. But what they don't understand is, it's not arrogance, it's awareness. You finally know who you are, what you deserve, and who no longer deserves access. And that awareness is the kind of power no one can take from you. Every rumor they spread became your marketing. Every doubt they spoke became your motivation. And every time they thought they buried you, you just planted another goal. Now, your success walks into every room before you do, and they hate that. They whisper, how did they do it? But the answer's simple. You stopped looking for applause and started building in silence. You stopped reacting and started redirecting. And in that silence, you found everything they swore you'd never reach. You didn't just stand on business, you became the business. Every ounce of pain became capital. Every failure became investment. And now your peace, your power, your purpose, they're your profit. You turned every lesson into leverage. They used to say you changed, and they're right, you did. You stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. You stopped playing fair in games that were rigged against you. And now they're standing in the ruins of their ego, wondering how you still win without trying. They can't stand how calm you are, because they expected you to collapse in the chaos they caused. But you learned how to stand tall even in silence, how to smile without needing an audience, how to win without noise. You didn't fight for revenge, you fought for peace. And peace is the hardest kind of business to stand on, because it requires walking away when your ego wants to stay. But you mastered that art, and that mastery made you untouchable. Now, when they see you thriving, it burns quietly inside them, because they thought they had the power to end your story. They didn't realize they were just a chapter, and the real plot began the moment you chose yourself. They still watch from the sidelines, whispering, doubting, pretending not to care. But they all see it, that unshakable confidence, that self-built empire of calm. You don't even have to speak anymore. Your consistency already told the story better than words ever could. Because when you stand on business, you stand alone. Not lonely, but sovereign. You learned that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest, and you became the quiet storm no one dares underestimate again. You're not proving a point anymore. You are the point, and the very same people who doubted your vision now follow your blueprint. Because when you move with purpose, those who laughed at you eventually take notes. Let them talk. Let them question. Let them stare. Their disbelief is just confirmation that you won the war they didn't even know you were fighting. You didn't win by shouting, you won by surviving, by mastering peace, by standing firm. So, when they ask, "How are you still standing?" smile, because they'll never understand that standing on business isn't about money or pride. It's about mastering yourself so deeply, the world can't shake you anymore. And that's what terrifies them. Not your success, not your glow, not your power, but the calm in your eyes that says, "I'm still standing. Always was, always will be." They thought you'd crumble after they walked away. They thought their absence would shake your ground, that you'd beg for their validation again. But instead, you built an empire from their silence. You learned that when the wrong people leave, the right energy finally arrives. Now, they see you moving different. No chaos, no weakness, no need to prove, just stillness and strategy. And that quiet composure terrifies them more than any revenge ever could, because they realize the one they tried to break now operates on levels they'll never touch. They're watching you now, pretending they don't care, but they do. They always do. Every win of yours feels like a bruise on their ego, because deep down, they can't understand how someone they tried to bury grew roots instead. You're not the same person they played with. That version of you died in the fire they started, and from those ashes came someone untouchable. Now, every time they speak your name, they taste the bitterness of their own misjudgment. You became everything they said you couldn't, and you did it without asking for permission. They call it luck. You call it discipline. They call it arrogance. You call it peace. Because you stopped explaining moves to people who still think life is a game of validation. You're not playing to be liked, you're building to last. They still wait for your downfall, but every time they think they see cracks, they realize it's just reflections of their own insecurities. You don't flinch anymore. You don't chase closure. Because when you stand on business, you move like time, steady, silent, unstoppable. They thought your silence meant defeat, but it was actually your focus sharpening itself. Every rumor, every insult, every jab became fuel. You turned their noise into momentum, their doubt into drive, and their chaos into calm. They whisper now, trying to downplay what you've built. But no amount of gossip can compete with results that speak for themselves. Because results don't argue, they just exist. And your existence alone is the loudest statement you'll ever need to make. You stopped defending your name and started defining it. That's the difference. You no longer beg to be understood, because understanding isn't your currency, excellence is. And that's why you intimidate them without even trying. They're starting to see that you don't seek validation, you command respect. You don't move in groups, you move in direction. You don't follow trends, you build standards. And every step forward reminds them how replaceable their noise always was. The same people who mocked your silence now mimic your discipline. They watch you rise, trying to copy the formula, but they don't understand that your strength was forged in isolation, not imitation. You earned your balance through storms they'd never survive. They're realizing too late that you were never competing with them. You were competing with your old self, and you won. That's the kind of victory they can't digest, because it doesn't involve revenge, just evolution. They wanted to see you angry, reactive, falling apart. Instead, they saw you grounded, patient, still. And that stillness became the loudest "I'm good" they'll ever hear. Because the calm after the storm isn't weakness, it's dominance disguised as peace.